Hello, I'm Kimberly Dondo, Digital Content Manager at Money Marketing, and welcome to our third episode in our new series of Royal London's informative pensions and protection podcasts. Listen to subject matter experts discuss the challenges advisors face and the support available to them to help them grow their business and deliver client value. In this episode, we'll explore investment across the different life stages and talk about insurance versus investment to support advisors with their investment proposition. Hello and welcome to this episode of Royal London's informative pensions and protection podcast. In today's episode, I'm joined by Ken Scott, Head of Investment Solutions at Royal London. Thank you for joining me again, Ken.
Not at all. Nice to see you again, Kimberly.
So before we kind of get into the main part of this podcast today, could you reintroduce yourself for those that may not know who you are?
Yeah, no problem, Kim. So my name's Ken Scott. I think you've already given me my job title. So I lead the investment solutions team here at Royal London. So we're responsible for all the investment solutions that sit underneath the pensions products that we sell to the market, both individual and workplace.
Mm-hmm. Great. So starting off, can we talk about personal finances and the types of risks customers are currently exposed to?
Sure. Okay. So when it comes to personal finances, there's obviously lots of risks we're exposed to throughout our lives. Some of those are about preparing for events that are uncertain. So things that may or may not happen in our lives, and they can be insured against. Whereas other things are things that are, will or at least are very likely to happen, but the timing of the outcomes might be ambiguous. So if you take maybe protection policies as an example, so things like term assurance or income protection, these can protect against the costly outcomes of quite unlikely events. So like paying off a mortgage on your family home in the event of your death, or providing an income when you yourself are unable to work, are examples of that. In these cases, although it's unlikely that need will arise, we hope that these situations won't arrive. If and when they do arrive, it's very important that they're able to withstand them, and they're likely to be kind of too expensive for us to personally save for. So insurance in these kind of circumstances is really important tool to manage those risks.
Mm-hmm.
I think when it comes to saving for retirement, though, you're saving for a much more certain event. Most of us can look forward to living a good deal beyond the point where we finish work, albeit how long that is uncertain and different for everyone. So that's a risk that most of us, well, certainly all of those of us who have defined contribution pensions, are managing ourselves rather than insuring against. But of course, over the course of our lives, through accumulating pension savings and then spending those savings in retirement, there's lots of different risks we're exposed to, and obviously lots of techniques that we can use to help manage them.
Yeah. And as a younger saver, this is something that I'm interested in. So thinking about retirement savings, what risks do younger savers have to think about?
Okay. So maybe if we start at the beginning, when people start saving, maybe someone's in their 20s and they get their first job and they're automatically enrolled into their company pension scheme. The biggest risk that they face probably isn't even an investment one. It's simply the risk that they are not saving enough or they're maybe not starting to save early enough. New employees really should ensure that they are making the most of employer contributions. And that means saving into pensions themselves often. And there's huge benefits to starting to save early on in your life. In terms of investment risks then, once you actually are saving into a pension, the big risk for customers that are accumulating is market risk. So that's the risk that, the kind of things that you're invested in, whether that be equities or bonds or anything else, these things have continuously changing market values. Now, the further away you are from the point at which you're retiring and you're going to actually use that money, the more that market risk you can probably withstand that. And, the volatility in daily prices shouldn't affect you. Indeed, that volatility in the market often has a premium attached. So as a younger saver, you might want to take those risks because in the long term, you would expect those to deliver long-term better returns. So that volatility, performance of savings month to month and year to year happens. Trying to time the market as an individual saver is a really challenging game. Even experienced fund managers don't get decisions right all the time. So that volatility is something that you should almost try and ignore. Think about, how much you're saving, regular saving. And one of the tools that customers do have to help manage that volatility is pound cost averaging. So it's not something we even think about using. So it's a kind of fancy name for a very common thing that a lot of us do. If you pay a lump sum into a market and the market is volatile and is moving up and down in prices every day, then you're quite exposed to, what is the day that I put my money into that market? Is the price high or price low? What am I buying into? In contrast, pound cost averaging is all about the practice of paying regular contributions to help smooth your money into the market. We're a couple of months now past tax year end in April, and every tax year we as a business see peaks in single premium contributions, and that's a pattern that's quite common for some customers, and particularly take customers like self-employed customers. Maybe people that run their own business, and annually they'll make decisions about how much money they want to take out their business and whether they put that into their pension. On an ongoing basis, they want to keep liquidity in their business, but at some points they want to bring money into their pension. And so that is often done on a more lump sum basis. But I think where possible, customers should consider, the benefits of regular contributions to smooth their way into the market, as it were.
Mm-hmm. And sticking with that, managing market risks, obviously it's important throughout customers' savings journey. So what other tools can customers use to manage these?
So I guess through an individual's savings journey, one of the best ways to manage market risk is through diversification. Imagine if you only invest in a single asset or even a single asset class, that can provide quite volatile returns. And one way to help smooth those returns is by diversifying risks within your portfolio. So you can balance assets that perform well and that will at least perform differently at different times in the market cycle. So, when one thing's doing well and other things not so well, and they balance off each other. And if that kind of way of managing a portfolio is done within actively managed strategies where asset managers on your behalf can tactically, up and down weight certain asset classes within your portfolio so that when they think the market is moving in their favour, they can be more in one asset class than another. That's where you can get that potential outperformance depending on the prevailing market conditions and all to the better. I think in the same way as we've talked about smoothing money into the market when we've been talking about pound cost averaging, as savers get older and they get nearer retirement, they also need to think about transitioning out of the market, or at least out of some of the higher risk investments that they're into investments that are maybe more suited to their retirement needs. So we see in workplace schemes, it's very common, and indeed a lot of workplace defaults use lifestyling, or they use target date funds, and that's a way of helping customers smoothly de-risk from kind of accumulating assets and high risk assets that help customers build savings in the younger years where they can withstand that volatility, and moving them gradually towards something that's more appropriate at retirement. Now, what type of investments customers move towards will depend on how they plan to access their money at retirement. So often firms will have different endpoints to these lifestyles that are for customers planning to buy an annuity or stay in drawdown, or even customers that just want to take their assets as cash. And also how quickly they transition from those high risk assets into lower risk assets will be a reflection of individuals' attitudes to risk. So there's lots to think about there, but consciously thinking about that transition ahead of time is really important, because it's not just about managing where you are at the end and where you are at the start. You need to think about that journey in between. The FCA, they had their thematic review of income advice published in March, I think, and that really highlighted the importance of customers and advisors thinking about that pre and post-retirement risks and how to manage them, and the distinction between the two. After retirement, customers are withdrawing from savings rather than putting money in. So they're managing additional risks. We sometimes talk about sequencing risk, which is the risk about taking money out in downturns in the market, and it's harder to make that money back. We've also got the case that, there's a practicality that once you've stopped working, you've got a lower capacity for loss because you don't have income to supplement your pension savings with. So you're dealing with what you've got beyond that time. So these impacts of capacity for loss and things need factored into that decision about how much risk customers take, and diversification can equally play a part before and after retirement as a really important tool to manage that. But it is, this is maybe a personal opinion, but I think it is. I would say that all things being equal, a customer before and after retirement with a similar attitude to risk might want to be in a lower investment risk portfolio beyond the point of retirement, given those additional risks that they have to manage.
Yeah. And sticking with talking about those customers in the later stages of their investment lives, what about the later stages of investing and planning for your retirement? What should a person be doing at that point?
Okay. So, this is different for individuals. And as we talked about a moment ago, different people will have different endpoints in mind and different ways that they will plan for that. Now, as customers get older, some, for example, might choose to mitigate their longevity risks, or the risks that they might outlive their savings by buying into annuity. And that way someone else is taking on the risk that they live longer than expected, but because they're buying into an annuity that's a promised payment throughout the rest of their retirement. Now, that's one way of managing longevity and sequencing risk, but it offers no flexibility at all. So you can't come out of an annuity and you can't change how much it's paying. It's, you buy and it's very much fixed. Now, one-way decisions like that can be quite hard to make, which might be the reason why annuity sales have been so low since pension freedoms. Pension freedoms 10 years or so ago now offered customers you don't need to buy an annuity anymore. You can manage your money as you like. But since then, we've seen annuity sales be very low. However, in the last couple of years, we have started to see annuity sales grow again. My personal view is that there's a number of factors behind that and influencing that trend. So, the interest rate environment has made annuities look more attractive recently. The market volatility that we've seen over the last few years has made managing investments at an individual level a bit of a riskier job, and that volatility that we see in the market can be uneasy for some people, and so they want the certainty of annuity. And also you've got that gradual rise in the proportion of customers coming to retirement these days that have got less and less or indeed no defined benefit savings, which used to be the standard until 20 years or so ago. So more and more customers these days come into the market only with defined contribution pension savings, and those customers might reasonably want some of the certainty that previous generations that had that defined benefit underpin would have got from their defined benefit pension. So using some or all of their pension savings to buy an annuity is maybe a sensible thing that some customers will consider doing. So lots of factors at play there. We've been talking as we go through here about almost kind of going through from early life to later life. One thing maybe just to talk about then at the very end is, as customers get right towards the end of life, some of us will need long-term care. And that's probably a really challenging risk to manage, and one that the government and industry is yet to fully crack. Care costs can be really expensive. You see bills at over £1,000 a week potentially. And it's therefore a very expensive thing to save for, particularly as it's something that some of us may never need to use. Not everyone needs care at the end of their life. And so to me, therefore, I think this is more of an insurance risk than an investment consideration, albeit I think this is an area in the market where you might expect to see innovation potentially coming from providers. But yeah, certainly one that's yet to be fully cracked, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But as someone who has parents who work in that industry, I've seen how much it can cost, and it is insane. But hopefully, some solution is created at some point, because I think there will be a pressing need for it. But thank you so much for speaking with me today, Ken. This was so interesting.
Good. Nice to talk to you as well.
Thanks again to Ken Scott for sharing his expert views on how you can plan ahead for retirement life stages and considering investment risk. To find out more about how Royal London can help you grow your business and deliver value for clients, visit advisor.royallondon.com/peoplepowered. See you next time.